That's right. Amen.
Some of you get that on the way home. And so I planted it with the choicest of vine. Folks, God sent His best
Amen.
to
Yes, He
this
did.
earth,
Yes, He did.
His Son.
Yeah.
God sent His Son.
That's right.
His name is Jesus.
That's right.
He came to love,
Yeah.
heal, and forgive.
Yes, He did. Yes, He did.
Because He lived.
Yes. That's
I
right.
can face tomorrow.
Yes.
So He said, I fenced it. I gathered the stones out of it. I planted it with the choicest of vine. Then He said, I built a tower in the midst of it.
Yep.
What's a tower do? A watchman that keeps an eye.
That's right.
No wonder the psalmist said in Psalm 121, verse number 4, Behold,
Yeah.
He that keepeth Israel shall neither slumber nor sleep.
Yeah.
You can come across, is it Route 63, coming from Lebanon to Monroe? And as you get toward the end, before you get to the hellhole called the gaming center there, before that you get to another hellhole that's called the prison.
Yeah. Yeah.
And you'll see on the corners of that, there's some towers there.
That's right.
They put the guard, keep an eye on them.
Right. That's right.
And the Lord's reminding them, I've had my eye on you.
Yes.
Imagine that.
Yes.
Not only is His eye on the sparrow,
Yeah.
but I know He watches me. I make a good song. Somebody ought to write one like that sometime. His eye is on the sparrow,
That's right.
and I know He watches me.
Yes.
God, the psalmist said, is our refuge and strength.
Yes, He is.
In fact, it also tells us He's a strong and mighty tower
Yes,
that we can run
That's
into.
right.
God is my
That's
refuge.
right. Amen.
All those years,
Yes.
He's been our refuge.
Yes, He is.
He said, I fenced it.
Yep.
I gathered out the stones.
Yep.
I planted it with the choice of vine.
Yep.
I built a tower
Yep.
in the midst. Then He says, I've done one more thing with you. As we look at this, what else He's been doing? And then it said, He built a wine press.
Yep.
Now that wine press lets us know that there were two things that the vineyard owner was expecting. First of all, when the harvest comes, those grapes are going to be squeezed. And there's going to be a sacrifice of that fruit so that there is more fruit of that labor.
Right. That's right.
It's that you see, all of that labor was not just for the grapes.
That's
There
right.
was even more fruit expected than that.
Yes.
It wasn't just to eat the grapes, but it was also drink the grape juice.
Right. Yes. Amen.
But that wine press also gives us this. It was built with a hope that with all of this effort, that with all of this work, that with all of this planning, that there's going to be a harvest, that I'm going to need the wine press. You see, this was a means to an end.
Yes.
And I'm glad to report to you tonight that we do, and I've already said this week, but thank God we have a hope.
That's right. Amen,
The
brother.
child of God has a hope, but God also has a hope and expectancy for us.
Yes.
He wants us to make it.
That's right.
He's made every effort,
Yes.
provided every means He can. There's no reason why none of us couldn't make it to heaven.
That's right, brother. Amen.
He's given us a glorious hope, a lively hope.
Yes. Amen. That's the truth, brother.
So He said, He fenced it, gathered out the stones, planted it with the choicest vine, built a tower, built a wine press. And now, I'm expecting fruit for the labor.
Yep.
And all I got was sour grapes.
That's right. Amen.
Wild grapes.
Yep.
That's a fine how do you do.
That's right. Amen.
And sometimes I think God must be wondering about that at the conclusion of some of our services.
That's right.
That's the best I've got
Yep.
for giving you the best I have.
That's right. Amen, brother. That's the truth.
God's letting Israel know. Okay, if that's the way you want it, here's what's going to happen.
That's right.
I'm going to remove the fence, so that the wild beast can come in, and what they don't eat, they can trample over.
That's right.
What has been so neatly manicured and cultivated, there's going to be thorns and briars grow up in it.
Yeah.
The vine is going to go to waste.
Right. Amen.
The tower, be no one in the tower.
Yeah.
People can come and go. They can do what they want with it.
Yeah.
There'll be no harvest of a winepress.
Right.
The winepress will set empty.
Yeah.
In other words, he's pronouncing judgment
Yes.
on his people
Yes.
for what they have not done
That's right.
in light of all he's done.
Amen.
He's pronouncing judgment that these people that have enjoyed their freedom all this time and enjoyed his blessings are now going to experience captivity.
Right.
They're going to be overtaken, overthrown.
Yep.
Life as they know it
Yep.
is not going to be as they knew it before. In fact, in the rest of this chapter, he pronounces 6 woes upon them. Verse number 8, verse number 11, verse number 18, verses 20, 21, and 22, 20, 21, and 22. Let's look at those 6 woes. In verse number 8, and I read it, and it just gives us a beginning of the woes, but it said, "Woe to them that join house to house and lay field to field." And later on in that verse, it makes it sound like they're standing out there alone. And what's that a reference to? But this attitude of covetousness, that there is this dissatisfaction, that there's this always wanting more, that enough is never enough, that they're not content with what they already have, and they just join house to house, they lay field to field, and it's like, I'm the only one, I live for myself.
Yeah. That's right.
There's a lot of people today doing that.
Yes.
Don't care about anybody else.
Yep.
They're living for themselves. A covetous attitude.
Yep.
I want more and more and more. I'm dissatisfied, dissatisfied. We get this, and then the next thing you know, the newer version comes out, and we got to have that before the other one is even, the new is wore off of it.
Yep. That's right.
That's pretty much the way we treat God.
Yeah. Right.
Some do. Don't get me wrong. And so he said, "Woe to them that join house to house and lay field to field." So there is this woe pronounced upon them for the spirit of covetousness. Then in verse number 11, he says, "Woe to them that rise up early in the morning and follow after strong drink, continue till night, till wine inflame them." If there was ever a time when there seemed to be such a spirit of drunkenness and debauchery, why is it that in America we can't do anything unless liquor is involved anymore? We can't celebrate, we can't have a good time, we can't get through life unless we somehow have to chase it down with liquor.
That's right. Amen.
Lord help us.
Yes.
Whether it's to be social, whether it's just to to get through the day, or whether it's to drown our sorrows, or I had a hard day, I think I'll have to have a shot of this, or something else. And the Lord help us.
Yeah. That's right.
You'd think it would be bad enough if it was just in the world, but it's creeping in the church.
That's right.
And there are those in the church that just go along with that. Go, "Oh, Pastor, I just want to be social. I want to be sociable." Yeah, look where that got locked.
That's right. Right. Yeah, think about that.
If there were ever a reason why I would preach against the ills of alcohol in any amount,
Yeah.
and by the way, Every alcoholic in the gutter started with that first social break.
That's right, brother.
We never know
Yep.
what our tolerance is to those sorts of things and what a grip it can get
That's
on.
right.
And the only safe way to deal with it is just leave it alone.
That's right.
Amen.
Amen.
Besides, I discovered something else that can get me and help me tolerate life and get me through the day.
That's right.
It don't come in a bottle either,
That's right.
nor a syringe or wrapped up in a paper.
That's right.
Amen, Brother George.
Yes, that's right,
But
brother.
I thought if we were to go back to Genesis chapter 19, and you remember that incestuous act between Lot and his two daughters,
Yes.
and that would have never happened had it not been for alcohol.
That's right, brother.
And there's four things that I see in that chapter that alcohol did to Lot that has destroyed a lot of people's lives. Why we as a church ought to stand up against the evilness of alcohol.
Yeah, that's right.
Why in the Lord I'm on this, I don't know.
That's right, brother. Preach it.
But I'll give you those four things. First of all, with alcohol, under the influence of alcohol, our wills are weakened.
Yep. Yep. That's the truth.
Our wills are weakened. Why is it that on spring break a lot of people, young people lose their virginity who at one time would have taken a stand against that? Because the guys know if they get enough alcohol in the girls, their wills will be weakened.
That's right. Amen.
Our morals are compromised.
Yes. That's right.
Our judgment is impaired.
Yes. That's right, brother.
That's good enough reason alone.
Yeah.
Our wills are weakened, our morals are compromised, our judgment is impaired. Lord help us.
Yes.
When I remember the fourth one, I'll tell you.
You come back tonight.
The three's good enough
That's
reason. Lord help us. There's a woe on them. Then we get to verse number 18. And in verse number 18, and our feelings are desensitized.
Yeah.
Thank the Lord. Our feelings are desensitized. Why, back in the Wild West, before they had anesthetic,
Yeah.
what did they do when they're going to take the bullet out?
Yeah. Yeah.
Lord help us. Okay, let me go on. Verse number 18. Woe to them that draw iniquity with cords of vanity, and sin, as it were, with a cart rope.
Yeah.
Now, you're looking at me strange. I understand. That's a strange verse. But here's what it means. They got to the place to where there was no shame in their sin.
Yeah.
To the point that they were arrogantly parading it around before God. They draw iniquity with cords of vanity, and they sin, as it were, with a cart rope. It's an envision. I want you to envision this. Like if you were to take a wagon or a parade float and pound your sin up on that, and then you grab the tongue of the wagon or the rope and you pull it around in front of the crowd and say, look what I'm doing, and you flaunt it before God as if there's no shame.
That's right, brother.
Listen to me, that's exactly where we're at in America. There is no shame for sin and perversion. In fact, they will even hold parades and flaunt it before the world.
That's right. That's right, brother.
God help us.
Yep.
And my young people, I want you to understand this. The rainbow is not a symbol of gay pride.
That's right.
The rainbow is a symbol of God's promise.
Yes. That's right,
We
brother.
need to take back
Yes,
the rainbow.
we do. Yes, we do.
The rainbow is a symbol of God's promise, not gay pride.
That's right.
And yet there are those who parade it around and flaunt it before the world.
Yeah.
Listen, that's what's made Jerry Springer a millionaire. There would be people who would never get on national television and talk about the perverted stuff that they do, but now they flaunt it around on there and boast about it.
Yeah.
And they applaud it.
Right. That's right.
And sometimes even our politicians will call them up and applaud them for coming out of the closet.
Yeah.
God help us. Smell it, be over a little bit. verse number 20. In verse number 20, woe number 4 is pronounced, woe unto them that call evil good and good evil. What we've had is a complete flip-flop of moral values.
Come on.
There used to be a time where black was black, white was white, right was right, wrong was wrong.
Yeah.
Then we've gone the last 40 or 50 years with what they call moral relativism,
Right.
to where there are no moral absolutes.
Right.
That what you perceive to be right
Yeah.
may not be what I perceive to be
Yeah.
right.
Yeah.
What you perceive to be wrong may not be what I perceive
That's
to be
right.
wrong. But it's okay. It's just relative. I want you to know something. There is absolute truth, young people, and God's
Right.
Word is absolute
Yeah.
truth.
Yeah.
And now
That's
I have
right.
now lived long enough that early on in my life that there were things that were wrong, there were things that were right, and I've lived through the moral relativism, and now I never thought I would see the day to where we got back to black and white, but the only problem is they're now calling good evil and evil good.
That's right.
And a complete flip-flop of moral values.
That's right. Amen, brother.
And the Lord pronounces woe upon that.
Yep.
Verse 21. In verse 21 he said, woe to them that are wise in their own eyes. Woe to them that are wise in their own eyes. Proverbs chapter 14. In Proverbs chapter 14, verse number 12, it says, there is a way which seemeth right unto a man, but the end thereof are the ways of death.
Yeah.
How many of you have heard somebody say, well, just follow your heart?
Yeah. Yeah.
That's ridiculous. That's the dumbest advice you could give anybody. Just follow your heart.
Yeah.
Why is that such dumb advice? I'll tell you why. Because Jeremiah said in Jeremiah chapter 17, verse 9, the heart is deceitfully wicked above all things and desperately wicked. Who can know it?
Yeah.
Especially, you can't follow your heart if your heart's not right with God. Your heart's going to lead you astray.
That's right. Amen, brother. That's right.
Smile at almost over. Everyone did right. That was in his own eye.
Right.
We're just about right there in America. Then when we get to verse 22, in verse 22 he brings up the subject of drinking again and alcohol, but it has to do with those who are in positions of authority, who are under that kind of influence, and the next woe is not really about the alcohol, it's about what happens as a result of that alcohol influence, and here's what it says. They justify the wicked by rewarding them.
Yeah.
They justify wickedness with reward and take away the righteousness of the righteous.
Yeah.
What does that mean? That means, for the right price I will turn my head.
Yeah.
It also means, what does it mean when it says they take away the righteousness of the righteous? You say, Brother George, they can't take away my righteousness. Oh no, but they can falsely accuse you.
Yes, they can. Yes, they can.
They can falsely accuse you. They'll look for something.
Yep.
You see, that's what they did with Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego.
Right.
They couldn't get them on their devotion to God. They got them on the fact they wouldn't bow to the idol.
Yeah.
That's what they did with Daniel. They knew Daniel wouldn't compromise on stop praying, so they just convinced the king to make it against the law to pray.
That's right. Amen.
To falsely accuse you.
Right. Amen.
What more could I have done? But I've not already done it. But I got good news in the midst of all of that woe. Go with me to verse 25. In verse number 25, the Lord wants his people to know this. For all this,
Yeah.
his anger is not turned away. Do you realize God can get upset? In fact, one message that brought about one of the greatest revivals we knew, it was during It was during those great days of they called it the Great Awakening in the mid-1700s. And a preacher by the name of Jonathan Edwards, who had preached a message in his home church that fell flat. But he was invited to come preach to another church, and he preached the same message that he preached in his home church that fell flat. But the message was, sinners in the hands of an angry God. And there was a revival that broke out when people realized, I don't want God upset with me.
That's right.
But God is wanting His people to know, I'm upset.
Yeah.
I am angry with you.
Yeah.
And that would be horrible to leave that message on that note.
Yes.
Brother Jack, the best part of this whole message is in the last part of verse 25, when the scripture says, but His hand is stretched out still.
Praise God.
His hand
Yes, He is.
is stretched out still.
Amen. Amen, brother.
He's letting them know,
Yep.
I'm going to judge you
Yep.
for your wickedness and sinfulness.
Yep.
But I'd rather save you.
Yes.
I'd rather forgive you.
Yep.
My hand is stretched out still.
That's right. Amen.
That's exactly what God's done for people this week.
That's right.
We've done our best to warn people.
Amen.
We've done our best to let people know that we can't keep on doing like we're doing and think we're going to get by.
That's right.
There is judgment to come for that.
Yes.
But the good news is there's mercy extended right
Yeah,
now.
that's right.
His hand
Yep.
is stretched out still.
Amen. That's right.
Some folks will come
Yes.
and take him by the hand.
That's right.
Amen.
Amen.
Tell him we're sorry.
Yes.
Tell him we're sorry.
Yes. Amen.
Would you stand with me, please? Father in heaven, Lord, you've been so faithful. Isaiah shared how you've been so faithful to your people Israel. But Lord, you've been so faithful to us this week. And Lord, you've made every provision, you've done everything to make it possible that we would have a wonderful harvest of sweet grapes. Lord, I pray that you would not find sour grapes among us.
Amen.
May there not be anything about us that would set your teeth on edge. Lord, you were going to bring, and you did, bring judgment upon your people, because even though your hand was stretched out still, they turned away from that outstretched hand. Father, I pray that tonight no one would turn away from that outstretched hand. You're softly and tenderly calling today. Come unto me. Come unto me. Lord, help us heed the warning. In the name of Jesus we pray. Amen. The altar is available. For all this, his anger was not turned away, but his hand was outstretched still.
When God's word was told, his people were filled with sin. It seemed all hope was gone, and Satan had been won and destined man to die. But Jesus said, send me a sacrifice, I'll be atonement for all their sin. And on that cross one day, his blood washed away for all who would believe. It still takes the blood.
Yeah.
It takes the blood of my Savior. Still takes the blood. It takes the blood to set your soul free. God's plan has never changed. No, He's never changed. 'Twas Jesus' precious blood. It was His blood that rescued you and me. Now one day people claim our God is not the same as He was in olden times. But I'm here telling you that His word will hold true, just like it did back then. He sent His precious Son. Now victory has been won for those who will trust in Him. Our Savior's blood back then was the sacrifice for sin, and the same is true today.
Yes.
It still takes the blood. It takes the blood of my Savior. It still takes the blood. It takes the blood to set your soul free. God's plan has never changed. No, He's never changed. His word still remains the same.
May it be used for your
'Twas
glory.
Jesus' precious blood.
Thank
It was His blood that rescued you and me. It was Jesus' precious blood. Oh, it was His blood that rescued you
Thank you, Lord.
and me.
Father, we thank you for these that come before you. Thank you, Lord, for the faithfulness of your Holy Spirit. Lord, thank you that they come to accept that outstretched hand that's offering mercy and grace tonight, that's offering forgiveness and help.
Yes.
And Lord, we accept that outstretched hand.
Yes.
Lord, here we are. We're sorry. We're sorry. We don't want to do anything that displeases you.
Yes.
We don't want to do anything that would bring your anger upon our life. Lord, we don't want to experience the wrath of God. We want to enjoy your mercy. We want to enjoy your long suffering, grace, Lord. Thank you. Thank you for extending to us that mercy. Thank you for extending your grace to us tonight, Lord. Oh, we want you to get sweet grapes out of our lives.
That's right.
We want there to be a harvest, Lord, that is pleasing to your taste tonight.
Right.
Amen.
Brother Holland, you didn't know that you were fine.
Yes.
Last night, several people, when you asked what more can I have done, last night, several people in the congregation, and several of them being people from my church, testified, and I was wanting to do that, I was here, but tonight, when you said that, I was thinking about, okay, last night when the other, and then tonight when the choir came that beautiful song, he's a wonderful God.
Yes, good, good.
And a good Father.
Yes.
About how good He's been.
Yes.
And I wanted to stand up and talk about how good He's been.
That's right.
And then the other verse says, how much I love Him.
Yes.
That's me.
Yes.
And that's what I
Yes.
so I wanted to, after they finished singing, I wanted to stand up and say He is a wonderful.
Yes, He is.
Amen.
Yes, He is.
And how much I love Him.
Yes.
But,
Yes.
if you ask yourself what more can I do, maybe it's not you, but it's good because He's done me.
That's right. Amen. Bless you.
Thank the Lord. Thank the Lord.
Well, the Lord sure has been faithful this week, and, that's all He asks out of us is to be faithful. Many of you were faithful to come every night. I don't know if all of you was faithful to respond. That's between you and God, but God has given you ample opportunity to do that and freedom to do it. And what more could you ask then God would not only watch over you, but God would allow you to respond. And I'm very thankful this week that people have responded. I hope and pray that people moved up, moved a little closer. And like our sister said, you know, it's His job to stir us up. It's our job to go out into the fields and preach, you know, to those that need it. Jeremiah said, you know, the summer's ended and the harvest is past, and there's still people not saved. And we can't save the world, but we can help some. And I hope and pray that you'll take this word that you've heard this week and go out to your places of employment, your schools, wherever you might go to the market, and spread that good news. And you know, when people ask you how you are, if you're saved, you ought to look at them and have a smile on yourself and say, I'm a child of the King. And let them respond to that, because that's what we are. And we are joint heirs. Somebody said, well, you know, I don't know about all this stuff about what listen, I'm a king's child. I got all the rights in the world because I have Him as my Father.
Yeah.
And so we ought to be more bold with that. Go out this world and tell people what God has done for you. And if you'll do that today, I'm telling you, you'll help somebody along the way. Even if you just put a smile on their face. You know, Brother Holly was telling me about a commercial he's seen today. You know, he's seen this commercial, the Interstate Battery, where they come on and recognize the love of God in that commercial. That's an oddity in today's world, but he was quick to recognize them and tell them how much he appreciated that. And they've already responded to him about that. So that's what telling somebody about God can do. You just got to mention His name. I hope and pray that we'll do that. Yes, ma'am.
Having nothing to do with those things, we call them everyone's issues, sometimes it's very hard. We thought we would be out in the prayer meetings. Instead of telling people, have a good day, please stand with God, serving God.
That's right. That's right. Amen. Yes. Yes. That's right. There's a church down in West Virginia we went to one time, this little church. On the back of the church, it said, go out, and now you're going out to the mission field. You know, and that's really what we're doing. That's what we should be doing. This is not where we win people, we win them out there. And now you've been inspired to do that, and I hope and pray that you'll do that. Let me say this too, we give Brother Holly what we take up during the week, but if you have something you want to give him, or he's blessed you in some way, he's got a little box back there, back at his table, slip something in there. Maybe a little note telling him what God. I'll tell you, you don't know the times that he has to leave home and he's burdened. And just an encouraging word, even if you haven't got any money, just write a little note and say, I appreciate the word this week, brother. And you would know what that'd do for him. You know? So try to do that.
Well, you're convicting me.
Yes.
Because I'm going to lift up Brother Holly.
Yeah.
He has always lifted me.
Yes. Amen.
I have heard him.
Yes.
I heard him 16 years ago. It must have been his very first sermon when he was here.
Yeah.
And I thank God he probably would be in this.
That's right. Amen. 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 Appreciate that. Anybody else before we close? You've had off all day. Don't complain.
Well, Dad, Brother Holly gave us some strong meat tonight, but remind what the Spirit's telling me that, you know, in Acts 24, it says, Paul said, I do this every day continually. I exercise myself and I have a conscience free of offense from God and man. And so, with such a challenging thing tonight, thank God you go to a church and you hear an evangelist that can tell you the truth, because the truth will set you free. And every time you hear a challenging word and your conscience is pricked, thank God that happens. Because every time you come to those doors and you go over that fence, you get stronger.
Yes,
And you get stronger every time. And I know sometimes in the God life, it gets hard when we get that growing process and we hear things about our past and things that have burdened us in life. But every time someone cuts you down, every time someone says negative about you, calls you Jesus or Jesus possessed, you keep going, you keep pressing, you keep fighting, and you'll realize every time you do that, you go above them. And what happens is you climb the ladder. Getting evil doesn't do anybody any good. Overcome evil with good.
That's
And
right.
I guarantee you do that. You live an offense-free life. You will conquer everything that devil throws your way, because the thing that gets most Christian people is they get church hurt and they judge this house differently. They judge everything else in the world. I feel the Holy Spirit here. They judge their husband or wife by a different standard than they judge everything else.
Yeah.
I know people that get offended at restaurants. I know people that get offended at movies and they keep coming back. I know people today that never stepped church because the pastor didn't shake their hand or someone didn't call them on the phone.
Yep.
That's how important it is. When you hear a word like that, don't get sheltered. Don't go down. go up, go higher, and every time you do, you'll be surprised how much you'll flex your muscles in God.
That's right.
That's the key of life right there. Our
That's
God
right.
can infinite it.
That's right. Amen, brother. Amen. Well, the truth been preached this week. I appreciate every word. All right. Anybody feel like dismissing us? You know, I don't ask that very often. Maybe God's put something on your heart. Anybody want to raise their hand and dismiss our service today?
I will.
Okay.
Heavenly Father, we thank you so much for this wonderful day you blessed us with, Lord, and for another wonderful service tonight, God, allowing us to join together in fellowship in you and to learn more about you. And even though sometimes our toes get stepped on, we need it, God, because you know that with our toes being stepped on, we can become stronger in you, Lord, and our footsteps will be made sure, Lord. We just ask you that you'll keep us safe as we go our separate ways and help us to recall these nights, Lord, that we can tell others about you and that we can gain strength, Lord, in our time of need, Father. We thank you so much for who you are and for Brother Colin, what he means to you, most importantly, God, and for what he means to us, Lord. We just ask you that you'll keep him safe as he goes on his way, Lord. I pray that you'll heal his wife, Lord.
Yes.
Touch her from the top
Touch
of
her,
her head to the
Lord.
soles of her toes, Jesus.
Yes.
Thank you for who you are and for your love and mercy and grace. In
Yes.
Jesus' holy name, amen.
Amen.
Thank you, Lord. Love you, brother.
Finally. Yeah, no, they should have these other calls.
I didn't care. I was like, no, sleep in front of my TV. Because she kept he's trying to reach out my heart. We're all
Well, they're one of the
How's your CD? Thank you, sir.
Oh, sure.